I'd like to introduce, the first innovation from Dr. G.S. Nair. He's actually one of the users of a product called Cytotron. You guys had a question on how to cure cancer. So here's an invention from India where they guarantee curing a tumor in about 28 days and arthritis in 21 days. You guys got to hear Nair talk about it. And this is a 10-year-old invention, so this is not a quack. So number two, the second important invention from India again is from Ronbo Amazing, right? So we have Sudeep George, who will talk about what they have done on night vision glasses and how they're kind of being very successful from India. The third invention from India is from Tigran. I'd like Shailendra, who's the co-founder of Tigran, to come and talk about what he's doing to convert our vehicles to electric, right? And the last but not least is Rajesh Kulkarni for Sadie Mac, another ignition auto company. I'd like to hear them talk. So Sanjay, the floor is yours.
So good evening. It's now close to 8 o'clock in the evening. So I'm sure the very few people here who are sitting wanting to hear a very long, complex discussion. What we will do, therefore, keeping in line with the theme, which is dealing with realities and the road ahead. We have a distinguished panel, as we know, two companies which are innovative companies out of India, focused on the automobile sector. One focused on healthcare, as we heard, and one focused on electro-optical systems. So what I'll do is sort of, very quickly cut to the chase. Each one of you, as we go from left to right, that's to my left down to Dr. Nair on the extreme left here, very quickly take maybe 30 seconds, talk about what you do and what were the challenges you faced and how you overcame them, right? So what we'll do is we'll first start off with what you do so that the audience gets a very quick perspective, and thereafter very quickly about the challenges you faced, and how you overcame them, yeah, the realities. Over to Rajesh from Sadie Mac.
Thank you. Sadie Mac is a venture that started off IIT Bombay campus. A professor from IIT and some of his students came together to form this company. Sadie Mac makes control systems for automotive industry, focusing on powertrain controls. That's what Sadie Mac is about. We have most of the automotive OEM names that you get to hear today in India: TVS, Bajaj Auto, Kirloskar, Mahindra, Tata Motors, Cummins, Ashok Leyland. All these OEMs happen to be our customers for these control systems, controllers, etc. That's what we do.
Great.
And
yeah, so we'll get to the challenges and all of that subsequently. So very quick, just about who you are and what does the company do?
Ronbo Amazing is an imaging product company. We make our own imaging systems right from the sensor level up to the product level. And we are across a lot of verticals, primary vertical being defense. We are also into industrial security. We are in retail. All sorts of analytics are now being factored in. And we're building a lot of products around it. IoT Next plays a lot of role here because we've now started releasing our own version of smart cameras, wherein a lot of the computing horsepower, the algorithms are all inbuilt within the camera platform itself.
Okay, thanks. Shailendra?
Thanks, Ajay. I guess the first challenge really is that, how to compress everything into 30 seconds. But let me try.
You can make it 35, yeah.
Okay. So Tigran is a 4-year-old company based out of Bangalore. And what we've developed over these 4 years is add-on system to your vehicle, which will convert it into an electric hybrid. The primary objective being to reduce fuel consumption and to reduce emissions, whether it's carbon dioxide, NOx, particulate matters, or any other kind of emissions, so that the tailpipe emissions fall, urban health improves, the vehicle owners' costs come down, and so on. But a fantastic, I really shouldn't call it a side product or a byproduct, but a fantastic benefit that is coming in free with this is that we are monitoring on a second-by-second basis 70 different parameters of the vehicle, including or in addition to the drive profiles and your routes and so on. And that gives us a huge amount of data, which is then applicable or can be used by whether it's government, insurance companies, OEMs, and practically anybody else. That's, I hope I didn't exceed.
Thanks, Sharendra. Dr. Nair?
Yeah, I'm a retired group captain from the Indian Air Force, consultant in aerospace medicine, internal medicine, and served about 32 years before I decided to get into the area of preventive healthcare. So my passion is that, once you realize that most of us are, thinking of health as disease. And once you feel that you are okay, that means there's no disease. And the fact is that today there is a need for proactive preventive care. And virtually we can make people live without any medical problems on a long-term basis. And in this journey, I set up a primary care health 2.0, IT-enabled, personalized wellness management. I address about a potential target of about 2 to 3 lakhs of people, including a lot of IT employees, particularly young people, through a chain of preventive care clinics. So that I've been doing since 2001. And the product that I'm going to discuss today is an innovation of a brilliant mind of Bangalore, a scientist, engineer. So he has innovated a device which can virtually be a super doctor. It can prevent and cure a lot of ailments. What he does is that, this is, of course, I'll be talking about the technology. He had been an associate of Professor Damadian, who, as you know, is a Nobel laureate who invented the MRI. And so using the MRI technology, he has found a method of addressing your cells to alter its voltages or electrical potentials, thereby normalizing all your body functions at that level, virtually playing God. So today, this device is, I've been using it for the last 10 years plus, and so I can claim that I have cured cancer, I have cured arthritis by demonstrating the cartilage regeneration, and very soon we should be able to claim that we have cured diabetes, we have reversed paralysis following strokes, and possibly the sky is the limit, but it's all confined to a few people, acquiring the device and then using it mostly on a commercial scale rather than on a scientific scale. But this needs to be lifted to institutes, and that's happening because right now I'm sitting with a project in which we are collaborating with the Johns Hopkins in the US for cancer treatment. So I've been getting patients coming from the US with the mandate that in about 28 days, they are expected to go back with a reduction of the tumor or altogether, almost a cure.
Yeah, pardon my interruption,
Yeah.
Dr. Nair.
Yeah.
Yeah, pardon the interruption. In the interest of time,
Yeah.
just to make sure that we
So
stay
today,
on course.
today I'm here on behalf of Dr. Kumar, who is the inventor, and so I'll be discussing this.
Sure.
Whenever.
Okay. So we've heard all about the brief introductions about each one of your organizations. But given the theme, which is about the realities and the road ahead, what were the realities each one of you grappled with, or your companies grappled with, and how did you overcome it? So what I would like to do is, after this set of questions, want to throw it open to the audience so that we get more time for Q&A, because we've got another panel after this, and then of course the most important agenda item, namely dinner. So what we'll do is, very quickly, if you can just help us understand what were the realities you faced and how did you overcome those. Rajesh?
I would like to highlight two aspects of the startup business. Most of you might be going through that phase. One is the product or the technology side of the business. Other is the actual business side of the business. Because having an idea, converting into a prototype in a product business, and then actually taking it to a series production supply sort of product, which is reliably running in the field, weatherproof, enduring all the tests on the field. That's a completely different ball game. Most of the startups end up having a lot of focus on the idea itself, on the technology itself. And when it comes to actually making the product that actually works for people, that becomes a big challenge. We have gone through such challenges ourselves, learned it the hard way. So I would recommend getting some expert advice from people who have been there, done that, in that aspect. The other side is the actual business story. We, for example, operate in a B2B space in the automotive industry. If you're not reaching out to the right people who make decisions in this industry, one might just end up spending a lot of time in doing something that may not result into final business. Another aspect is, while we need to focus on the technology differentiation, okay, please also consider a possibility of business model disruption. Just only the technology differentiation may not be the thing that will get you to become a successful and a fast-growing business. So you may have to look at, can you do something differently along with doing something different?
So what were the realities? I mean, the question was, with regard to, was the ecosystem well developed? Did you have to find, let's say, new sourcing partners, manufacturing partners, design partners? Was finding, recruiting talent, the right talent, was that a challenge? Those kinds of things as well, policy measures, intellectual property protection, et cetera, et cetera.
So in terms of the ecosystem, I mean, we started in 2007. I don't think it was ripe at all for a startup that time. Even today, I don't think it is in a completely mature state. In terms of getting the right investments, right funding at the right point in time, it's a challenge. So for someone who doesn't have an established credentials in the B2B space, okay, establishing in that space itself becomes a challenge. Talent in India, I would say it's not that bad now. We have premium institutes churning out good engineers, at least on the engineering side. Although attracting talent and retaining talent is a challenge, but availability doesn't seem to be an issue today. And even from a hardware manufacturing standpoint, I think there are enough EMS companies which can support well in India today in the initial phase for any startup till one gets to own manufacturing sort of setup.
Okay. Sudeep?
So when we started off Ronbo Imaging, we had this great idea about getting the technology in place. So we did that. We spent the first 2 years getting our technology right. Then we started figuring out, okay, let's go and advertise this to the customers. Turned out that our primary vertical was the defense, because we had developed a thermal camera, and the defense is the biggest customer for thermal imagery. It was a very hard job to try and convince them to actually make use of the newer technologies in thermal imaging. Because what happened is the customer turned out to be exposed to a lot of older ideas, and for him to change his mindset, it required a lot of dedicated effort on our part. We were actually sitting down with these guys. We were out in the fields at the border, demonstrating why our technology is better than what they already have. And I'm sure many of you are aware that the defense business is a very slow-moving business where quality is more important than the actual technology, because there could be a person's life that is dependent on the kind of product that you're giving. Which brings me to my second point. Everything worked great, and it still works, and I'm sure many of you face the same issue. It works great in your labs, in your offices, but the moment it's out with a customer, you have a different set of issues. And getting to address those issues requires a lot of field work, a lot of understanding of where your technology is being used. Believe me, the kind of ideas that you have where your technology may be used are nothing compared to the reality. The customer is going to put them in places that you haven't even dreamt of, right? So actually catering to that and building a system that can, a product which is mature enough, reliable enough to withstand all those environmental conditions, whatever the customer throws at it, that is the biggest challenge that I have faced. And getting that whole product to meet those quality standards, that has been a huge challenge.
Thanks, Sudeep. Shailendra?
So Sanjay, I think the first challenge that I would like to talk about is somewhat similar to what Sudeep and Rajesh has said, is that finding precision engineering facilities or people with a mindset for precision engineering in India, despite the progress this country has made, is still extremely, extremely difficult. And it can turn actually into a deal breaker for a startup. At this point, I'm not talking about electronic manufacturing, but actual mechanical, electrical, electrochemical manufacturing. There are still very, very few people who can do precision engineering, whether on a prototype basis or on a manufacturing basis, to the level that is required. We talk about world class, but it's difficult. They're there. It takes a huge amount of effort to find them. And when you're innovating in a space, you need to really push the envelope, you need to tear the envelope, you need to cross those boundaries. And if you don't have precision engineering, you can't do it. But having said that, I think the biggest problem that we face and still do is to convince people that to have a broader vision. You know, we believe in carbon-free transportation, for example, right? Now today, thankfully I don't see anybody laughing yet, but today you say that and there are skeptical looks all over, right? This whole world is based on fossil fuels, on carbon. But it is actually possible to achieve carbon-free transportation, certainly in India and therefore in large parts of the world, within 15 years. Now you try and tell that to somebody and you say, I can make existing population of vehicles, 30 million four-wheelers, 7 or 8 million trucks and buses can be made to reduce their emissions and reduce their fuel consumption at the same time. As one of our big customers told us, this is a unique CSR project where I'm actually going to save money, right? But if I say that in the presence of anybody who is from the industry, then you find the blinkered vision, you find the accepted wisdom of the industry coming in the way.
So people aren't willing to break the mold and think differently.
At the macro level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of a larger
the customer
goal.
sees it like this.
Of a larger goal. You're basically
Right. Right now, so the customer sees the benefit. You do a pilot, he runs it for a month and he sees, yes, I'm saving this much money. And he's happy to add on the green part onto his publicity material. But to get people to say yes, and at this point, for example, I could be talking about investors, right? Say, yes, this is possible, I'm willing to invest in this, or I'm willing to take a bet and say, okay, I will place an order for 20,000 units, and we'll see what happens. That really is the biggest challenge, that the innovation is feasible, and we can think about and we can actually achieve innovation which is as good or better than the best in the world. That's the key.
Thanks, Shailendra. Dr. Nair?
Yeah, as I mentioned, my area of working now is in healthcare. And healthcare, as you know, it is more of disease than health. So we are all conditioned to imagine that we are normally all right, and a disease is something which bothers you, and at that time you go for a treatment or some investigation, something like that. Whereas today's, in fact, the World Health Organization is seized with the problem of the non-communicable disease burden the world over. 14 million people die globally every year, people between 30 and 70 years, year after year after year. And nobody looks at the depth of that problem. These deaths are mostly due to 4 preventable diseases, starting with heart-related blood pressure and heart attacks, diabetes, respiratory diseases, and cancer. So the doctors are being taught in the medical schools. The full emphasis, the first year, a few months are spent on general body anatomy, physiology, and things like that, the normal human body. The rest of the 4.5 years is spent on hammering that how to treat a person who is already affected by disease. And so he's out looking for people who are unfit, who are having serious problems, and his life is just looking at, and incidentally, it brings in a lot of money because people are willing to pay when they have a pain, but they are not willing to pay for an advice how to remain healthy. We are all built to last about at least 100 years in perfect health, and we don't even make maybe 50 or 70% of that in most cases. Depends on each one's environment and things like that. But today, the understanding is that you have to focus more on the positive things. That means your wellness, how fit you are, how healthy you are. And most of the diseases are not coming out of the, any complicated processes. They're all affected, caused by your own ignorance or lack of awareness about how to lead a healthy life, all related to mostly history and heredity, your physical factors, your
So Dr.
lifestyle.
Nair, you're basically saying that
Yeah.
people need to be aware of a holistic
so this
point of
awareness
view.
is what
Yeah.
is so.
Yeah.
You have a device. You were asking me about the
Yeah.
problems about this particular product. So we have a product which is supposed to be against. Immediately we've been approved for 2 diseases. One is the arthritis, which is a very common disease. That means a study in India showed that women above the age of 35, about 52% of them have already got arthritis. They may not be symptomatic, but the disease process is already set in. And old age is synonymous with arthritis. You take it for granted that every elder person above the 60 years, the point is that it could have been prevented, but then there is no chance to go back. So we have a burden of, huge burden of all kinds of diseases. Diabetes.
Arthritis was one, you said. The
arthritis
other is?
one. The second one is cancer. Again, cancer, as I told you, today we know the etiology of cancer, and in a majority of cases, the major part is played by the genetics. That means the history and heredity, your lifestyle, and the certain other issues related with stress and other things which are of small nature. So it is possible with guidance, with timely periodical checkups, that a person can be told that you have a risk factor, like in your risk analysis in whatever you are doing. There are algorithms, there are ways of calculating. Today you can calculate what is your risk of getting a heart attack, what age and things like that. It's
a holistic view.
Yeah. So these 2 products
to really prevent
so
all of this.
So this device, the problem with the invention of this device is that the device has been invented and in a small research center. Out of the coincidence of this person having been and working with Professor Demadian, and he used the MRI technology to address the individual cells in the body.
You mentioned that
Yeah,
earlier
yeah.
as well.
So,
Yeah.
so the thing is that in our body we have nearly 47 trillion cells, out of which
Yeah.
30 million cells die every day, 40 billion cells are added. So the body is continuously building new cells, and it's also ensuring that the quality control
So
is
Dr.
mentioned.
Nair, I will have to interrupt
Yeah.
you now in the interest of time. And I think we have time for maybe two questions. One question, very quick question from the audience. Do we have any questions here? No questions. Okay. There is a question. Okay. And is there a microphone?
So this question is regarding the thermal imaging system that you talked about. Now, as a concept, as a theoretical principle, thermal imaging is something is very well established over a long period of time. But so when you come up with a disruptive technology in that, the concept are still the same, but the way the system is developed is different. So why would you have that kind of a resistance for, leave out the qualification processes and all that, which is all well laid out in the defense procurement process. But why would a new technology find
Why are
resistance in
customers
acceptance?
finding it harder to accept new disruptive technology?
Sure. So, in short, the answer is reliability, right? Because the customer requires a reliable system. He doesn't really care too much about the technology behind it. He doesn't want to get into it. He wants something that works 100% of the time. You're very right. What's disruptive about a thermal imaging system, at least from our perspective, is that ours is shutterless. So that's something new. It's innovative. But the customer didn't appreciate it. So we actually had to educate him on why it helps him better. So in short, it helps him see better, right? So we actually had to go through this whole process of explaining to him that this is why technology matters and this is how you're improving your utility of this product. Absolutely.
Thanks, Sudeep. Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks for the excellent presentation. So, yeah, can we take that offline, please? Because we have another 15 minutes. We'll take it offline. Can we take offline, please? Okay. So, time for Sanjay to kind of hand over a memento as a token of appreciation. Right? They're all the tech inventors of IoT Next. Can we give them a big hand, please? Request Krishna to hand over a token to Sanjay. Sanjay, thanks a lot for that excellent moderation. Thank you so much.